Unemployment numbers look good, and everyone claims the economy is humming. But here is the catch. Millions are vanishing from those statistics, jumping straight into gig apps instead of filing as unemployed. This revolving door hides a crisis as app-based jobs quietly soak up economic pain, disguising how fragile work and pay have become. If platforms can keep workers trapped in low-paid gigs while official data paints a rosy picture, how close are we to the real breaking point, and what even counts as a job anymore? What counts as a gig job is not as simple as it sounds. The term covers everything from driving for rideshare apps and delivering groceries to designing logos online or renting out spare rooms. Some people pick up a few tasks a week for extra cash, while others rely on these platforms for their main source of income. Even the government struggles to pin down the exact numbers. The Bureau of Labor Statistics uses terms like contingent and alternative work arrangements, but their surveys do not always capture the fast-changing world of app-based jobs. For example, a driver who picks up a few rides between shifts at a traditional job might not show up in the same category as someone who delivers full-time. Meanwhile, private research firms and gig platforms use their own definitions, sometimes counting anyone who has ever completed a single task as part of the workforce. That is how estimates can swing so widely. In 2022, about 70.4 million Americans did some form of freelance work. Projections say that could pass 90 million by 2028, more than half the US workforce. But these figures blend short-term gigs, side hustles, and full-time freelancing into a single headline. The result is a blurry picture where millions of workers slip through the cracks of official statistics. Without a clear definition, it is nearly impossible to measure how gig jobs actually affect pay, security, or long-term opportunity. Before anyone can judge whether gig work is a lifeline or a trap, the first challenge is figuring out who counts and who gets left out. Every gig platform sits at the center of a three-sided marketplace. On one side are customers, eager for fast service and low prices. On another side are merchants such as restaurants, stores, or other businesses, and they want steady orders and enough margin to stay afloat. The third side is the workers, seeking reliable pay and a steady stream of gigs. Platforms like Uber, DoorDash, and TaskRabbit stand in the middle, orchestrating the flow of money, orders, and labor. Their power comes from the levers they control. They can charge customers higher fees, reduce what they pay workers, take a larger cut from merchants, or try to boost the total number of transactions. Each move shifts the balance of the triangle. Charging customers more risks losing orders. Squeezing merchants too hard can drive them away. But workers, often plentiful and easily replaced, become the most flexible lever. When profits come under pressure, the simplest move is to trim worker pay, whether by lowering per-task rates, reducing bonuses, or tweaking the algorithm that decides who gets what job. The result is a system where the platform's interests are protected first, and workers feel the squeeze most directly. This dynamic sets the stage for what happens as platforms shift from attracting users with generous pay to extracting profits from every corner of the triangle. The trap tightens when the easiest way to balance the books is to make every gig a little less rewarding for the person doing the work. Gig platforms didn't always squeeze workers this hard. For years, rapid growth was fueled by a flood of investor cash. Companies like Uber, DoorDash, and Instacart handed out sign-up bonuses, guaranteed minimums, and regular promotions. New drivers could count on extra pay just for completing a few rides. Customers got discounts, and restaurants paid lower fees. These subsidies weren't about making money, they were about building market share fast. The goal was to blanket cities with drivers and orders, outpacing rivals and locking in users on all sides of the marketplace. But this era of easy money had a deadline. In early 2022, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates at the fastest pace in decades. Suddenly, burning through cash to win territory became a liability. Investors demanded profits, not just growth. By late 2022 and into 2023, platforms began dialing back incentives and shifting their focus to extraction, to getting more revenue from every transaction. Bonuses shrank, guaranteed pay offers disappeared, and per-task rates quietly dropped. At the same time, the number of workers signing up for gig apps kept climbing. According to Gridwise and other tracking firms, driver supply outpaced order growth in major cities throughout 2023 and 2024. That meant more people chasing the same pool of jobs, with fewer promotions to cushion the blow. As platforms pulled back on subsidies and interest rates stayed high, the system tipped from expansion to extraction. The oversupply of workers triggered a new phase: longer waits, more competition, and steadily falling average pay. The promise of quick, easy earnings faded, replaced by a grind where the math no longer worked in workers' favor. A rideshare driver in Toronto opens the app, hoping for a busy night. The fares look decent at first glance, but the real story hides in the numbers. Every dollar earned faces a silent parade of expenses: gas, insurance, car payments, maintenance, phone data, and a hefty self-employment tax. The platform's cut comes off the top, leaving the driver to shoulder every other cost. But the biggest drain isn't even visible on a receipt. It is time. A detailed analysis from Toronto showed how this math plays out. Researchers tracked gross earnings, then subtracted every expense: fuel, repairs, insurance, depreciation, and taxes. They counted every hour logged into the app, not just the time spent with a paying rider. Once all costs and all hours were included, the average net pay for many drivers fell below Ontario's minimum wage. The gap widened for those working peak hours or in crowded markets, where too many drivers chase too few trips. This isn't just a Toronto problem. Across North America, gig workers face the same erosion of take-home pay. The difference between gross and net can be stark. Sometimes more than half of earnings disappear before reaching a worker's bank account. The promise of flexible, decent pay fades under the weight of hidden costs and unpaid time, leaving many drivers locked in a cycle where working more does not always mean earning more. A single tap can lock someone into a cycle that is hard to break. Gig apps promise instant onboarding. Just sign up, and you can start earning within hours. Many workers depend on daily cash-out features, using the app almost like an ATM for rent, groceries, or gas. But the platform's control runs deeper. Every job offer comes with a hidden gamble, the pay is unpredictable, and the rules can change without warning. Ratings hang over every interaction. A few low scores can mean fewer gigs or even sudden deactivation, leaving workers scrambling. Then there is tipping. What started as a bonus has become a lifeline, especially for delivery drivers. In New York City, when apps moved the tip prompt to after checkout, average tips dropped sharply, cutting into already thin margins. Platform design and payout systems keep workers chasing the next order, hoping the numbers add up before the bills come due. On March 11, 2024, the Department of Labor put a new rule into effect, tightening the standards for who can be called an independent contractor. Under this rule, more gig workers could be classified as employees, unlocking rights to minimum wage, overtime, and unemployment insurance. But as legal lines shift, platforms have already shown how fast they can adapt. When layoffs hit, displaced workers pour into gig apps, swelling the ranks almost overnight. The result is a feedback loop. More workers chase fewer orders and pay falls. At the same time, algorithms can tighten in real time, reducing surge bonuses, cutting available gigs, or changing dispatch logic without warning. Now, the next threat looms on the horizon. Companies are piloting robo-taxis and delivery bots in major cities, promising to cut costs further by replacing human labor. Even before mass deployment, the possibility alone weakens worker bargaining power. The safety net remains out of reach, while the ground beneath gig workers keeps shifting. Today, nearly 1 in 3 U.S. adults earn income through gig platforms. As technology rewrites the rules faster than laws adapt, millions face shrinking paychecks and unstable futures. The real test is not who adapts to the gig economy. It is whether we demand an economy that works for workers. Share your thoughts below.